Welcome to the table.
We're your hosts, Michelle and Laura.
This is where we talk movies, food, and the ways that they bring us together. Grab a seat. This episode starts now.
Okay, Michelle. We are back for our second Valentine's Day series. I'd say this season's going to be a little bit different. We're trying to lean into the theme of time, really focusing on past, present, future, and how they all tie together with relationships and first kisses and last kisses and all the things in between. And then we have some other really fun things coming up. But we thought we'd start out with something a little bit more bleak. We have never discussed this movie before. So any first memories with 500 Days of Summer for you?
Yes, I have exactly one memory of this movie. It came out in August of 2009 in the theater, which makes me think that I probably didn't see it until 2010. But I have this very clear memory of watching this on the TV in my bedroom in my house in Connecticut. And I'm pretty sure Jimmy watched it with me. He says that he has seen it. So I'm guessing we watched it together. And my memory was that I didn't love it, I think, because it does end happy, but it's kind of a overall sad movie. It's more of a breakup movie than a get together movie. But when we chose this for the season, which I'll also mention a little behind the scenes, this was the last movie that we picked. We had all the other ones in place and we were looking for one more. And when you brought this up, I thought, wow, yes, I would love to revisit this movie from a more mature movie watcher lens, because this time around I had a completely different perspective on it and can't wait to hear if yours was similar.
I almost feel like I need to extract myself from this section of our podcast because it's getting really old so that I just rewatch films on TV. But I would have been a sophomore in high school when this came out, around there. So it definitely brought back some like nostalgic angst feelings. It feels very on brand for 2009 and where I was in my life. This is definitely a film that I've seen multiple times, but I have not seen this in a while. So I felt the same way. I think I was definitely looking at it from a writing and different critique this time around watching it today, which is very fresh in my mind. As I was watching this, I was like, oh, this is definitely not a Michelle pick movie, but I also know that you're going to have some insightful things.
Yeah, no, I have way more things that I loved about this than I didn't love.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't love Joe? He's an angel. Our boy Joseph. Yeah.
Our second, actually, I think this is both our second Joseph Gordon-Levitt movie. In the last time we did a somewhat of a Valentine's Day season a few years ago, we did mashups. So we tried to pick two movies that we thought went together. So we did cover 10 Things I Hate About You, and we paired it with, what did we pair it with?
I think
I can't even remember.
10 days.
Oh, right, because we were playing with the 10.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a fun episode. So that was our Joe episode. And then I think our only other Zooey episode is Elf, which I think at the time when this came out was the only thing that I knew Zooey from, because this is pre New Girl.
I definitely had the thought of crossing universes, that this is who Cameron from 10 Things I Hate About You would grow up to be. So it feels right.
Yeah. I mean, he definitely had a lot of the same energy, and he was kind of placed in the same point of view where he's pining after someone who's not exactly reciprocating his feelings.
I think that
typecasting.
I think that Bianca ruined him, and then he grew up to move to Los Angeles from Northern California and work at a greeting card company.
It totally adds up.
He got all his architecture inspiration from their high school.
Yes. Oh my God, this totally checks out.
And changed his name to be dramatic because it's
Yes.
something that Tom would do.
Yeah, someone who has a chalkboard wall in their apartment. Yes.
Yeah. Just going back to what you were saying about Zooey, I'm trying to place myself in this mindset of watching this in 2009. And I think that at this point, both Joseph and Zooey weren't really in my peripheral. So I think I knew who they were, but I hadn't seen them in many things at this point. So I think it was definitely an enjoyable opportunity to see them in these roles and then see who they kind of went on to be in.
This may be not the right place to ask this question, but what did you think about their chemistry?
I thought it was perfect for what this movie was trying to communicate. They did not have this like electric jump off the screen. You did not really want them to end up together. I think that they were both individually cast very well for these roles, and it ended up working. I think it works very, very well. This is not your typical romantic comedy. It's not your typical romantic dramedy. So I just think it works as is.
I can't agree more.
Yeah.
There was a point in the movie where I thought, oh, they look so cute together, and I'm enjoying seeing the two of them hang out. But it was very much hang out, not be romantic with each other.
Yeah.
And I think that this casting was brilliant because they really nailed that. Just because two people can be together doesn't mean that that chemistry is there. Because I did not feel it from a romantic perspective. And I think even though when I watched this a long time ago, it made me sad that they didn't get together. Now watching it, I'm like, oh, thank God they didn't get together. This is not a
Yeah.
good match.
It's weird when you go back and watch these movies. If I was watching this in high school, I think I remember having that feeling of, there's not this happy ending where they get together. And oh, they did have this good chemistry. And it kind of, I'm able to appreciate it now and really understand what they were trying to convey. There's like an early mention of Rachel, Tom's sister. She says, just because you guys are interested in the same stupid thing, something along those lines, doesn't mean that you should be together. And so much of this movie is almost poking fun. They're definitely in on the joke of like, what are the tentacles of what make like a perfect romantic movie, and what did we grow up seeing, whether it's in a greeting card or a song or a movie, that makes us like believe in love or have these almost unrealistic expectations of love and how it should be, and then kind of flipping that on its head of like turning that into like anti movie with the happy ending. I mean, I think it just works. Like what they were trying to do, they achieved with this movie.
I feel like it was a really good message, and almost the writers showing us what they learned. But I also love that they start the film with this little disclaimer about that these are fictional characters and that any relation is just coincidental. And then they call on Jenny Beckman, which I read is kind of who this movie is truly based on. Mm-hmm. So it seems like they're over it, but still have a little residual bitterness, which is understandable. I mean, we all do.
Jenny Beckman is the most girl who broke your heart in high school name you could ever conceive. And I really hope that he didn't change her name because it's perfect. And if it wasn't, then I would imagine it would be something similar. So I loved that. Do we want to just go into it? I think that music plays such an important role in this movie, and it makes sense because the director is historically known for music videos. When I think about 2009 and I think about the songs that are playing, yes, there are some throwbacks, but there's two Regina Spektor songs that come into play here, Hero and Us. I definitely listened to her during this time period. I think I kind of associate her with like the Jenny Lewis, Rilo Kiley stage, which are all artists that our sister Lisa and I really loved. So these are all like things that really brought out this like nostalgic kind of emo but indie feelings that I was feeling at the time. And I think in a lot of movies, it's very apparent when someone makes a movie and they're just using it as an excuse to kind of like drop in songs that they love, which I think is the case here, but I also think that they're very well thought out and really do connect back to the story. They move it along or move it backwards, because there's a lot of jumping around in the timeline. And it just works. Like whether or not I love a lot of the songs, like I probably could have gone without Sweet Disposition, but maybe that was a song that, the director or writer connected to a previous relationship. But I think it was almost these little like sprinkles throughout that really made the script and the story and Tom and Summer's relationship come together for me and kind of made me feel especially how Tom is feeling in these moments and using music to convey that.
I doubt that this was the case, but it almost felt like they had a list of songs that they wanted to use, and then they crafted the scenes around them to make sure that
Yeah.
they would really be integrated in with this story. I mean, that's how seamless it all felt to me. And I don't know the titles of the songs as well as you do, but the first song that plays when they have the opening credits, do you know what
Yeah,
that one is
that's
called?
Us by Regina Spektor.
Ah, as soon
Yeah.
as that started playing, I was in love. I
Yeah.
was all in just by
Yeah.
them. The whole opening with the music and the visuals
Mhm.
was just, it was beautiful.
This movie is very much trying to be like the anti-love movie,
Hmm.
but the decisions that they make, whether it's the split screen, the side by side home videos, the description of how Summer is different and she pulls people in, and saying that she's like not just or she is an average woman, but here's what makes her not average, or men think that she's not average, and then like combining that with music, I think is what makes it unique in its own way.
Am I allowed to start talking about the structure of this movie? I
Yeah,
mean, I know that you
please.
kind of just
Mhm.
hinted at it with all the ways that the music worked with them, but I love how, I guess I'll use the word experimental, this movie was about using a bunch of different ways to tell this story, including, as you mentioned, we start off in the opening credits with this beautiful split screen of their old home movies, and then having a narrator that kind of comes in and out. It's not this consistent thing. I felt like there was a long stretch where I forgot that there was a narrator, and then he comes back, and they do a few things like they repeat that split screen, that they repeat the narrator, but then there are a few things that they only do once, and I love that. I wish
Yeah.
that more movies would just be quirky and play around in that way without feeling like they have to stay to what a typical movie structure is.
Yeah. I agree. I also disagree though, because I think there are movies that I'll watch and I'm all for supporting like experimenting and doing different things and pulling from different techniques of different filmmakers that someone would be influenced by. But I think in some movies there's almost like too much experimentation, and then the story or the purpose gets lost because there's almost not like a clear concise goal. But like you're saying, for some like almost divine reason, all of these different creative decisions just work for this movie. And I think that all of these creative directions that kind of, we think of like indie and a little bit off the cuff and like things that make us a little bit like feel a little artsy. It's just like it all kind of morphs together into this very specific tone and style.
I forgot that you hated this in La La Land. You thought that Damien Chazelle
Yes.
was a little too experimental, especially more with. They do a few quirky things in that movie, but
Yeah.
in that movie, it's much more about the kind of the lenses and the filming than the kind of external elements that get put in this
Yeah.
movie.
I think above all, like tone in a movie is so important. And that really coincides, I think, with how something is shot and like, the different, I know we're using La La Land as an example, but like really there are those random like backdrops of like Los Angeles or things that almost look like stock images. But in this, they're using black and white like interviews or the split screens, and maybe it's less about, oh, does this work and is this going too off the path of like the overall tone and creative decisions in the movie, and maybe something that I just enjoy, because I definitely like that more like vintage look in like my own things that I'm just interested in. So maybe it's less about does it work, and it aligns more with like the creative style that I would have picked or something that I enjoy watching.
Yeah, I liked that they both had a couple of these little vintagey scenes where they were literally in black and white and it felt very 50s. They had one section that almost felt like a newsreel. Am I imagining that? Or is that how you would
Yeah,
describe it?
maybe. I mean, they do nods to some like old. I think they have a nod to like a Fellini film and some movies when he's like going to watch it. But
They were kind of watching a trailer about their own relationship. Am I also
yeah,
misremembering this? I watched this yesterday and it's
um,
when they were in the movies, what was it that they were it's kind of revealed that they were watching.
yeah. I can't remember. We'll have to revisit that. I might have spaced out at that point,
Okay.
which is
Well, I
not a
think
good
that
sign.
where the point here is that they do so many different things that
Yeah.
we're mixing them up a little bit, but my original point was going to be that they have a couple sections where they shoot in black and white and like you said have this very like Fellini type feeling to it. But in addition to that, even if they didn't have any of that in the movie, the whole film, I think because it's set in 2009 and was probably filmed in 2008, I feel like that was kind of like the last of this era before people started to get smartphones. And I know that also that their outfits feel a little old timey while still being current, but I don't know. The overall vibe of this world feels almost out of time, timeless, or if I was going to identify a time, like a mid century feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a part that I didn't attach so much to. I was actually trying to figure that out because like, oh, okay, this movie did come out in 2009. There are these elements that I'm like, this does feel very 2009, but I feel like their intention is they're it's trying to kind of be like, we're not set anywhere. This can be,
Hmm.
cross different times and leaning into our theme of times. Like this is a very, back and forth over 500 days. I feel like some of the whenever I think of the Smiths, which I was just laughing watching this movie because there's this very specific kind of character that Summer plays in this movie, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about when we talk about Zooey. But like when I think of the Smiths, I think of their songs as like very silly, but they sound very serious. So and like Dom is a huge Smiths fan, and like I feel like I love that kind of like emo side of him, but it has like almost two different tones. And I just loved that decision that they made to use There's a Light That Never Goes Out, when that's kind of like not their meet cute, but in a way it is, because it's the first time we're really seeing them interact and speak to each other. And I just loved that creative decision because, again, like this movie has a mix of tones. I would not consider it funny, but it's more serious and brooding, but then has this like angsty feeling to it. And I feel like they couldn't have picked like a better band to convey like in that moment of what he would be listening to.
It is poking fun of itself,
Yeah.
like you said earlier,
Yes.
whether that was a subconscious decision or an intentional one.
Mhm.
It is brilliant and fits perfectly.
Yeah. If you walked into an elevator with potentially the love of your life, what song would they be listening to?
Oh, I mean, probably a very old-timey song like a, maybe not literally Frank Sinatra, but like a Frank Sinatra-esque song or Frankie Valli or something. I think just the more obscure, the
Yeah.
better. That would get my attention. Yeah.
Yeah. I
How
love that.
about you?
Probably the Smiths. Like something very like emo, and I don't know. I don't know why I keep saying emo. It's not really emo. It's like I don't
But
know,
like
just
an
something
emo
a little bit
person would
more
listen
like
to it.
indie and like silly, not taking themselves too seriously, but has like that a certain vibe.
Is the Smiths the same music that Natalie Portman's character is listening to in Garden State, or is it just something like that's just like a very similar
Very
situation?
similar. And when you look up this, type of character, which they call manic
The Manic
pixie,
Pixie Dream Girl?
um,
Yeah.
Zooey Deschanel in the article that I read actually came up twice. It was one in this movie and one in Yes Man with Jim Carrey when she plays this kind of non committal woman. I mean, he's also supposed to be like the non-committal one. And Natalie Portman from Garden State also comes up. I think when I think of the is the proper term manic pixie.
I thought it's Manic Pixie Dream Girl, but maybe that's the
Okay,
extended
manic
version of
pixie
it.
dream girl. Yeah, I mean it's this very like a man's perfect almost version of this woman who loves the Smiths and is like a little bit quirky and a little bit mysterious and is supposed to like help them grow and change and like see things from a different angle, and they don't necessarily have a goal or something that they're trying to achieve. They basically like exist in this world for the male character to thrive and learn something from. I haven't watched Garden State in a very long time, and I think I've only seen it once, but I remember not loving that movie, and I remember not loving Natalie Portman's character. But I think with this movie, because it's whether or not, I mean, in my mind, it's very intentional that they're doing this, and it's almost like we're in on the joke. I do not get annoyed by it, but I think in most cases, I don't like that type of character.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of negativity
Mhm.
around the idea of a character like this existing. I think mostly because of what you said, that it's kind of like serving the male main
Yeah.
character. But in most cases that I can think of, the main character is a guy. And we are,
Yeah.
especially in this movie, this is we're seeing this and they're admitting that it's a skewed perception of what is actually happening. I think that
Yes.
that's kind of like a point that they're trying to make in this movie.
Yeah.
So I'm not necessarily as offended by it maybe as I should be as
Mhm.
a woman. I think as long as we continue to make more films where the woman is the main character,
Yeah.
then we could do it back to the guys, have a
Yeah.
whatever the guy
Yeah.
version is.
And I think in
Yeah.
a way there is, both sides where females kind of have that fantasy too of like who
Yeah,
is
of
like
course.
the perfect man who kind of like screws them over or whatever the, decision is. So I don't know. I agree. I'm like I feel like maybe women watching this right now are like, how could you guys not be detested by this character?
It's
But
I don't
I
know.
don't know.
It's a character and
Yeah.
like you said, I agree. I think if I were friends with, I'll just say a person, it doesn't really matter what their
Mhm.
gender is, I would struggle to have any kind of even friendship with a person
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Summer just I think there's like a big I guess, argument or what you can say or kind of like fall back on and he said, she said of, well, in the beginning, she was always very clear with him that she did not want something serious, right? Which I'm like, okay, totally hear that. But I think that all kind of does fall down, which is like, I guess more of the no point of the movie where there's kind of like no turning back when he like punches the guy in the bar and I actually love that conversation where she's like, you're making this about you, you did that for you, not for me, even though you think you're doing this for me. So they kind of like flip it for a second, but then when he is very honest with her and says like, I want to be with you and I, don't want this to be casual, and then she makes the decision to come back. I think that's where the he said, she said of whatever she said in the beginning kind of like went out the window. And I think that's why I eventually start to like disagree with some of like the selfish decisions that she starts to make when they have like the reconnection at the wedding. So it kind of starts out one way, but it also like makes the story more interesting.
Yeah, I think that there's a version of this movie that could exist that is a little bit more hammering home this idea that he was seeing it one way, but it was in actuality another way, like kind of Love is Blind kind of
Mhm.
concept. And I'm curious if they entertained that, and if so, if I would have liked that better. I mean, I definitely would have been more forgiving of Summer's character because I feel the same way. I think that I kept trying to give her the benefit of the doubt because she was
Mhm.
very clear from the
Yeah.
beginning about what she wanted and didn't want. But then we see a little few instances of her actions not completely lining up with what she said. But then that scene where she very much comes back. I mean, what I'm feeling when I'm seeing that is I don't want the same thing that he wants, but also I don't want to lose him, and I feel like that's like kind of a very
Yeah,
selfish
or
decision.
kind of, what she does leave us with at the end that is very much her character, that she's someone who does something based on how she feels in the moment. She says, I
Hmm.
wanted to dance with you.
I mean, I think that that's why this type of character or this type of person is just really challenging for me to think about or to like
Mhm.
want to extend full empathy toward
Correct.
because that comment that you just brought up about her saying, I wanted to dance with you, like as
Mhm.
honest as that is, and I
Mhm.
appreciate that honesty. She knows she's not a stupid person. She knows that he's still
Mhm.
in love with her, and she essentially made the decision to like weigh her impulsive, pure feeling in that moment over the what was going to be the fallout of that.
I know we're talking more from a lens of like that we disagree with that if that was like someone in real
Yeah,
life, but like I think it was actually a really smart writing decision because it made the story a lot more interesting.
it did. And I think almost having a little bit of that murkiness and the fact that we're spending so long talking about this
Yeah.
is what I think every filmmaker strives for is
Yeah.
for it not to be a clear cut, this
Yeah.
is right and this is wrong, to kind of be
Mhm.
able to see multiple sides
Yeah.
and people to have different opinions.
My previous relationships or situationships, whatever you want to call them, like growing up, that is a very real thing. That's like a
Hmm.
very
Yeah.
real human decision that a lot of people make. So I think it actually felt very true.
We don't have to get into details, but have you have you been on both sides of this?
I
Have
think
you
so,
more
yes.
been the Tom or have you ever been the Summer?
I think 9 times out of 10 I've been the Tom, but there's probably like 1 in 10 that I've been the Summer. And I'd much rather be the Tom.
Yeah.
And it's funny we're talking about this because I was with our cousin Erica today and we were having that conversation of, especially when you're younger and you are thinking about someone that you're interested in and you're kind of like head over heels for them. but then you're thinking about someone who's maybe pining after you and you're like, oh, they're just there. It's kind of convenient. I'm not really interested in them. They're a nice person. But we never really think about the person that we're maybe pining after is saying the same thing that we're saying about the person who's convenient to us, of like, yeah, they're kind of just there. They're a nice person. I maybe don't want to hurt them, but I'm not really interested. And I've kind of felt like most hookups in my life have kind of been that, of like, well, she's fine, like I have a good time with her, but she's not someone that I would like to end up with or have a serious relationship with.
Yeah, and I think when you're younger, it's just lower stakes. Like
Yeah.
you have more time to play with,
Yes.
and we
Yeah.
don't all have to take ourselves super seriously,
Yeah.
which I think is fine, you
Yeah.
know?
But I think also when you're younger, I can't quite tell how old they are in this movie. I would probably maybe say late 20s, early 30s if I had to guess. But
Mhm.
especially I think in your 20s, everything feels a lot more intense. Like
Yeah, that's true.
the even short relationships, like 500 days is actually not that long. It sounds long, but relationships that last 3 months feel like
Oh,
the
yeah.
world is falling out from underneath you. And I think they hit that home really well. All right,
All right. So we have 2 guests that have
we
joined
have
us.
two guests. They came at once. Lisa, we've already brought you up in this episode, so it's perfect timing.
Laura, do you want to introduce? Well, first,
Sure.
I'll just say that I'm recording from a different location that does not have a door. So my cat Rory has decided to join the conversation if you hear him in the background. But we're also being joined by our sister Lisa, recurring guest on the show, who came prepared in costume. I love this, Lisa. She's
Yes.
got her
Sure
headphones
do.
and Anna Smith's t shirt on. She's our Lisa. Are you our Manic Pixie Dream Girl?
Yes.
I'm definitely your emo contribution to this conversation. All things emo from 2007 to 2009. I have you
Yes.
covered.
Lisa, I'm going to need an exact link to where you purchased the shirt
Oh
because I
my
need a
gosh.
matching one with you.
Well, I am a little ashamed about this shirt. I got this shirt actually like a few years ago because
No
I was
shame in it.
in need of like a nice t-shirt to just like wear out for fun that I could wear with jeans. And it is not like album artwork
It's okay.
t-shirt. So I got it on Etsy. And it has like a nice umbrella with
It's
rain,
Oh,
which I
very
thought was
classy.
pretty appropriate for the vibes of all of their music.
I think it would be great to just hear, like, when you think back to this movie, like, what is your perception and like what was going on in your life during this time?
So this came out summer of 2009. I was going into my junior year of college.
Mm.
So I actually don't remember the first time I saw this movie, and I don't even know if I saw it in the movies or not, but I knew of it, and I feel like it was all hyped up that summer, like a lot of promotion for it. I was very immersed in the culture of the movie, the music, the clothes, what the characters were into, but I was younger than the characters. So they were like already in the working world. I don't even think I was 21 yet. I think when I watched it, I was like a little surprised. When I was younger, I feel like I was just like enamored by everything. And then like now I'm 36 and I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, this is so different than what I remember. Also,
Yeah.
like, Summer is like very actually ordinary. Like, he makes her out to be like this pixie, like, dream girl. And like, to him, she is, but like, she didn't even have that much makeup on for a lot of the movie. Like, she was very ordinary. So,
Mm.
to me, I think like in my mind, I didn't even really make those observations at the time. I think it has like a little bit of like kind of like it's like a gray toned movie. It has like kind of the typical boy meets girl vibe in the beginning, but then like as it ramps up, you're like, oh, this is just really depressing. Like throughout it is. Like you just you see things starting to unravel and you're like, well, I'm going to just have to see this through.
I know you brought up the Manic Pixie Dream Girl, which Michelle and I were discussing. I know you do like the movie Garden State. I'm not a big fan of it, but do you feel like whether it be Garden State or other movies, like that type of character works? And is that someone that like a type of character that you enjoy watching?
I think at the time that I was seeing those movies, I did enjoy it, but now I'm like, oh my God, this is painful. When I was younger, I was like, you think that there's so much more to these characters, that they have like these exciting lives and whatever. And then, like, now, from my perspective, I'm like, it's all kind of just an act. Garden State, Natalie Portman, I think I probably liked her character a little more. She was like a little more fun, and vibrant and just silly. But I don't know. Now watching it, I have a completely different perspective. But the music and the culture just make those movies. Like, I think people connecting over music, no matter what, like if you're like into indie things or not, is special. So that, like, when you're experiencing that in your life and then you're seeing it in the movies, it's like you can't believe that it's happening in real life.
I know we're talking a lot about the creative decisions for this movie, Michelle, but like the very cliche, oh my God, you like Bruce Springsteen? I like Bruce Springsteen. My dog's name is Bruce, which I'm, by the way, very upset that we never got to meet her dog, Bruce, because I picture him as a bulldog and I think he's cute. It's the tone, it's the way that those scenes are shot. And then it's the script and like the kind of like, oh my God, this is so cliche that we're talking about that we like Bruce Springsteen and now, we should be in love because we both like one of the most well-known artists of all time. But yeah, I think to Lisa's point, like that's why it's just such a strong decision or strong use of music, I feel like, throughout to kind of like jump back and forth between these things. Not a favorite scene, but I feel like the karaoke scene or the which you don't call it their first date, but it's almost like the first time we really get to see them like have quote unquote deeper conversations or get to know each other a little bit more. I really liked that setting because it's a very like vulnerable yet fun place that you could like let your hair down a little bit and then maybe bond over something that's like extremely universally loved.
I get a little like, oh no, I don't know if I'm going to like this or not. If there's a part in a movie where someone sings or plays a guitar or something or someone else, I'm like, oh, this is going to be painful. We have to sit through this. But this was like truly entertaining to watch all three of them, including Mackenzie, sing at karaoke. And of course, we know Zooey has a great voice. So I felt like that was a treat to get to hear her sing that song that I love.
It was a great use of tell us a little bit more about the character. If, Tom were to pick a song, well, of course it's going to be, Here Comes My Man, and hers is going to be that song. And Mackenzie's is something so absurd. I think it's like, God Bless America, because he's like, so drunk.
Yeah.
What are each of your go-to karaoke songs?
I don't think I've ever
Michelle?
sang at karaoke before.
All right. Well, I'm making you go out. We're going to karaoke together.
I don't know. I think I need a dress rehearsal if I'm going to do that. I'm going to have to practice at home first.
Your word of the year is show. So we're bringing you out to karaoke.
Since I don't have one for myself, I'll share Jimmy's, which I feel like is very indicative of his personality. So Jimmy actually has a great voice and can sing. He picks rather obnoxiously very long songs. So ones that I've seen him do are Bohemian Rhapsody. I don't know what's another really long
to pick for karaoke.
Yeah, but he nails it.
Has he done that in front of you?
Oh yeah, several times.
That's impressive.
I think that's his go-to. Yeah.
I feel like I'm a big fan of ballads. I love a piano. I don't think I would have the confidence to sing this, but It's All Coming Back to Me Now by Celine Dion is like but it's not like, I feel like in a bar setting it might not be good. It's
No,
not
be
like
great.
No,
super
everyone would be
lively,
so into it. Yeah.
but
Especially
It's so
after
it's one of
like
my
dramatic.
favorites.
3
Love that song.
shots and 3 beers. Are you kidding? People would
A
lose
lot of
their minds.
swaying and yeah.
Yes. People
Yeah,
coming together, having
that's
their arms around each other. Yeah.
it's definitely one of my favorites.
Laura, what's your song?
Mine used to be in my younger years, which is like the most basic, but Shania Twain. I feel like a woman. Because just is fun.
Oh,
You're out
let's
with your
go,
girls.
girls.
No, but I think mine is very actually on brand for this movie, but The Dancing in the Dark by Bruce Springsteen. There's this really great karaoke bar in Los Angeles, which I'm bringing you all to the next time we're all back there together.
Are we going to let this be our question for the table?
Yes. So, listeners, we want to know what your go-to karaoke song is, or one that you're just proud of that you've recently sung.
Yeah, and you can tell us in the comments anywhere, social, YouTube, Spotify, or ask this question at your dinner table.
And locations for good karaoke spots are welcome as well.
Oh yeah, that would be
We
great.
gotta get Michelle.
Since I have
out
to get out to
those
one, let's
audiences.
make it a good one. All right, do we have
that's
other?
it.
So Lisa, by the way, we're in our what did we love section. Do we have any other things that we haven't brought up yet that we love about this movie?
I don't know as much about film and cinema as you guys, but the way that
We don't
they
either.
formatted the movie to like start from the end, and then they just went to random days or whatever, backtracked the relationship. It felt confusing at times, but it also, I feel, was necessary to kind of explain why she broke up with him. Like, you just had to see the whole sequence, and you had to see all those little moments where it started falling apart.
Yeah, and I also think it's very reflective and accurate of when you're so in love or think you're so in love with someone and you think back on these like positive memories. It's almost like all the days jumble together. Like, yes, you can go back to this specific day in January that, maybe I saw them for the first time, but like it's almost like all of these memories start to overlap with each other. So I actually didn't mind that. It kind of jumped back and forth throughout.
Yeah, I both loved and I had to keep pausing and going back when I watched it yesterday because I did keep getting a little confused and I wanted to make sure that I was focusing on the right number. But in a way, I feel like just that aspect of it adds to it that, like you said, Laura, when you're reflecting back on a relationship, it is very jumbled and you're not quite sure where you are or where things started to fall apart. And it's almost like we know that they break up from the beginning, but we're trying to piece the story together. And I also think it kept my attention. I mean, this is another great, tight script. I did not look at my phone once. I didn't even think about my phone. I thought that was a great plot device.
Yeah, and I think it made it easier to make the creative decisions of, I personally love the part where he runs through all the reasons why all the things that he loves about her like, heart-shaped beauty mark and, the sound of her laugh and her haircut, and there are all these like positive attributes, and then at the end they flip it on the head of like, these are all the things that I hate about her, and it's all the exact same things, but he just changed the verbiage. He says like, oh, her 60s haircut or her cockroach shaped beauty mark. And I feel, again, these are all things that I feel like people have experienced when they go through these breakups, and then you start to hate the other person, and then you think of, oh, well, now I can say all these horrible things about them and completely change my tune of, these are the things that I initially fell in love with.
How do we feel about Tom working for a greeting card company?
I have to say I loved that creative decision because it was so ridiculous. Like, they could have easily been like, oh, they work at a finance company and it's so boring and they need, something exciting to happen in the office. They need this to kind of be this mundane backdrop, but to like use that as a device of like kind of his whole monologue or blow up when he quits. But like, you know, when you think of greeting cards, it really is something that we give to someone that we love or care about, and we're trying to express how we feel. So it was like a very on the nose, but they were able to like weave in all of these things throughout, like through the place or the setting that they work. So I'm like, thought that was such an original idea.
When he started having all those good ideas for the cards and the sayings and everything, like the fact that it weaved into his current relationship was like kind of funny and kind of fun. But at the same time, I also felt like she would just make these comments throughout, kind of like when she found out he was planning on being an architect and that he wasn't currently an architect. She kind of said it with this tone like he settled for this job. Like I feel like there were certain times where she was basically trying to like feel him out, like what are your aspirations? I mean, I really focus on that a lot this time from like a woman's perspective. It was so interesting. And then did you talk about that scene when they went out to dinner and then that other guy was like hitting on her and he ended up like punching the other guy? I have like so many opinions about that part. I was like,
Tell
he
us.
was just doing what was natural for a guy who was like in love, or just showing that like this is the girl he was at the bar with. And then she got mad at him for that. So it was like, I just felt like it was this like kind of icky feeling that like she said she didn't want anything serious. And then he was just earnestly trying to like do what any guy would want to do in that situation. And then she like gave him shit for it. I just felt like she was not clear about what she wanted. And from a hopeless romantic perspective, it was like terrible to see that. I felt like she was just playing this like, whenever it served her for him to be a gentleman, he could be. But then when she didn't want it, or it felt like that meant it was getting too serious, then she was like, nope, I can take care of myself.
I think we're kind of on the same page about the sentiment. We kind of had a long chat about whether or not her character is, you know, problematic. And in real life, I think the answer is yes. But that scene Laura will address more.
I mean, I definitely took it more as like anyone's reaction if you're feeling like possessive over someone that you've been sleeping with and spending all this time with for weeks, and like genuinely have these deep feelings about. Obviously he's gonna get, you know, defensive. But I very much thought that, which is kind of what you had mentioned earlier, of like the immaturity that I think both of them have. But like, I don't think that his reaction of like punching that guy was in defense of her. I very much think it was like in, well, I need to insert my dominance and I need to insert that I feel, you know, important. And it wasn't actually to like defend her. It was really for his own, but almost like his own ego. And she even says that to him. But then on the flip side, one thing that we did talk about was like how that point was so important though, because it kind of showed this side of him that she had an issue with, because she's also like, I can, kind of like you said, I can take care of myself, turns into this blow up fight of, if you see us as friends, like I'm not okay with this anymore. And that kind of pushes her to make this decision, like, okay, if I want this man in my life, I either need to commit or I need to move on. Their relationship very much could have ended at that part, but that's where she makes the decision to be with him and to choose this relationship. And I think from that point on, that's when I start to unravel or lose respect for her for the future decisions that she makes to string him along, which, you know, but I think like both sides of the coin, they're both like kind of making selfish decisions at multiple parts.
Totally. Yeah. But also, she was the first one to make a move when she kissed him in the office. So, like, I think they are both immature, but I think
Mhm.
that she kind of like knew the effect she had on him. And
Yeah.
she was just like, whatever, I can do whatever I want. I'm
Well,
in control. So
yeah.
that was like, I think that was like a little in bad taste. She said, I don't want anything serious, but I know that I have you hooked and I'm going to just kiss you now. And this means something different to me than it does to you.
I really do actually think that Xerox scene creatively was like so great
Yeah, it
because
was a good scene.
she leaves him with like his hair like it looks like he got struck by a bolt of lightning, you know? He's like,
Yeah.
what just happened? Like this girl is like all over the place. Um, but I think it's like, you know, a very like accurate depiction of someone being like, I'm not looking for something serious, and the other person being like, okay, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that if you're fine with that, because they know that's the only way that they can, you know, keep them in their
Yep.
orbit.
You're right. That's
Which
it.
is heartbreaking because it's like, you know, it's never going to end well when you have people on those two sides of the coin. So I feel like the director and the writer, like together, they did a really good job of portraying that accuracy of like how common that is in life and relationships.
Yeah, I just have one other thing that I want to bring up here, unless one of you ends up wanting to bring this up in favorite scenes. But I think the idea of going on a date to IKEA is great. I think that more people should go on dates at IKEA. I feel like it's a maybe not a first date, but like a early on in dating date, because I feel like it's a kind of like low pressure way to test the relationship. You kind of, you kind of get stuck in there. You get to see how the other person reacts to other people, whether there's crowds or, if they're respectful or if they're rude. You can kind of see their taste in decor. And then I mean, I don't think that they did this, but you can have a meal there at the end too.
Yeah. I'm so happy you brought that up because I think they use like setting so well in this movie. And I think like the choice, like I never even thought about that of like getting lost. And it's kind of like almost being in this like fantasy relationship of like, well, what would our life be like if we were cooking together and we had two kitchens and we were in bed together, and you kind of like start to kind of what she said that she wasn't into in the beginning of like a fantasy. What is this make believe movie life if we do end up together? They kind of used all these like settings as such a strong way to like encapsulate exactly what they're trying to communicate. I want to like talk a little bit about like the train scene in the wedding a little bit later, but even like him wanting to be an architect and like using like rooftops and then like going back to the bottom, like they just like did such a, I feel like, good job of that. But I agree, I think I would like to go to IKEA on like an early date to test the waters out a little bit.
All right, should we move on to what we disliked?
I don't know if you already covered this or not, but that scene after, I'm assuming like they had sex or whatever, when he just like breaks into that Ferris Bueller's Day Off moment, I was like, this is by far the most cringy scene I've ever seen in a movie. And like, I feel like they made it that exaggerated for a reason, to just be like, this is really how people feel like after they like fall head over heels for somebody. But I was like, oh my God, it was like almost impossible to watch that scene. I was like, oh my gosh. But who would do that better than Joseph Gordon-Levitt? Like, he
Yeah.
was just made for that scene. Like, his facial expressions and everything were perfect, but I was just like, oh my God. I
Yeah.
was like, this is like so over the top and so ridiculous. But the movie was like very theatrical. So I feel like them throwing that in there was not a big deal. the movie had like a very artistic feel, like I keep going back to gray because it just felt like the way they shot it, like they might have done that on purpose because it was like this kind of looming like doom that was coming. I don't know, maybe this was just like the budget. I don't know if they had a good budget or not. Do you know what the budget
To be
was for
honest,
this
I don't even
film?
know what's considered like a big budget versus small budget, but
Yeah.
based on coming from someone who's living in Los Angeles, like, it's portrayed as like taking place in downtown LA. Like no one hangs out in downtown LA.
Yeah.
I think they were like pretty limited
Yeah.
in the spots that they could film. But yeah, I actually never thought about like the tone of it being like kind of gray and almost like this cloud in his mind. So I really like that point. It's funny, like usually, I feel like of the three of us, I'm like the person who likes musicals the least, and kind of like breaking out in song is something that's so cringy to me. But I think I just keep going back to like what they're trying to over communicate is like in our minds of what we fantasize as like being in love and what it feels like. I think that's what they were trying to play into a little bit more, instead of being like, oh, we're just going to do this musical number and see if it works. So I think that's why it personally worked for me, and I found it, I don't know why, just like hilarious and actually very relatable, of like when you're having a good day, like take away the them having sex for the first time, like, and you're walking down the street and you're like, hey man, what's up, and he's like shaking hands with strangers. So I kind of loved that. I thought it was like really cute. To your point, Lisa, maybe it's because Joseph Gordon-Levitt is just so adorable and charming that it made me love it even more. But like, I actually can't believe how much I liked that scene.
Oh my God. Well, no, I
Yeah.
like that you love it. I think there's just like something about it where I almost feel like it kind of like breaks like the indie vibe of the film. Like I feel like it
Yeah,
was a serious
I get it.
film. I know they like threw in like the lighthearted karaoke and everything, but it feels like this is what they're going to show in the preview. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else that I really disliked. It was just, it's been so long since I've seen it. So just watching the whole thing now from an older perspective is just interesting. And I also am curious, Michelle, I don't know when you saw it or not, but since this was like 2009, America just came off like some heavy like financial years. So I also was considering that kind of with the tone of the movie was a
Mm,
little
Oh, I
kind
didn't
of
even think
like
of that.
down, like they worked in the city, like a lot of people lost their jobs. It was just kind of like a reset a little bit for our country. So I feel like even though this was like a fictional story, it still took place in LA. And I just feel like that kind of gloomy vibe was probably relevant to what was going on with the writers and
yeah.
anyone really who was related to the film.
I want to talk a little bit about the LA setting. I didn't realize until halfway through the movie that this was even in LA.
Mhm.
So a minor complaint is that I wanted it to feel more like an LA movie. Like if they're going to put it there, don't, it felt just like a generic city. Like I thought it
Yeah.
was New York
I
until,
feel like it could have taken place in like Seattle, or I think in my mind it definitely probably had something to do with a budget decision,
Mhm.
because there actually was a point when they go to the karaoke bar. I was like, oh, this feels like such a fun like New York dive bar. And then I was like,
Mhm.
oh, I completely forgot this movie is supposed to take place in LA, which is just so strange. Like no one's going to the park and like looking out at the downtown LA city skyline. So I
Yeah.
think it was a little bit lost in terms of the setting, but I'll give them a pass because it didn't like make the movie fall apart. It was such like a kind of afterthought of everything else that they were trying to convey or do.
Yeah. It didn't take me out of it so much. I think I would have preferred if they either went hard and like, made LA an integral part of like, what the city is actually like and how the characters related to it. Cause we don't even really know like where, what part of town they lived in or anything like that. Or took this approach which we were talking about in the beginning of the movie, of it having this very almost like classic timeless feel. So could they have also just had this, have them been in a nameless city and like double down on that instead of
Yeah. I
labeling it?
almost would have rather the latter because I don't think that they could have made the creative decisions. Like, again, I just keep thinking that they were just in downtown LA this whole time, which is like no one is
Yeah.
living in downtown LA. There's
Well,
like
yeah.
two people. So,
Yeah.
I have one other. This is probably my number one thing that I didn't love. I felt like, is it Chloe Grace More, how do you pronounce her last name? Moretz? Her character, Rachel, who was Tom's younger sister, her performance was great. I kept coming back around to like, what purpose does this really serve to have this character in the movie? I didn't really feel like it added anything. I felt like she was kind of playing the same expository role that his two friends played. Like he needed someone to have conversations with, and like, yes, it was like cute and kind of funny in the beginning how she showed up, and that, you know, she was this younger sister, but, you know, so much wiser and a voice of reason. And Laura, I did in the beginning, I was thinking of me and you, because we do kind of have this kind of age gap, and I do feel like even when you were younger, that we would have discussions with each other like we were adults.
yeah.
But story-wise, it felt like unnecessary to have that extra character in there.
That was a big thing for me. Even not that I didn't dislike the friends, but I think all three of them collectively really did nothing for the movie besides him talking about how he's feeling. Like honestly, if you cut them out and you just had him like sitting brooding alone in his room, it would have been fine. I think that one scene that I actually really did love, which was very like experimental and maybe not too experimental, but it was just very set apart from the rest of the movies when they do the black and white interviews with his friends and they're, you know, his friend accounts from like how he met the love of his life in seventh grade. And he ends with that line of like, well, you know, she's better than the girl of my dreams. Like she's real. And I think that they could have done that if they had consistency or maybe a little bit more runtime of like having Chloe's character, Rachel, also give her account of like, I am in eighth grade and I met this boy and, you know, we sit at the same lunch table and he always buys me like my favorite Snapple. You know, like they could have had more fun with that of like pulling in the people in his life and like their perspective on love instead of like him just having these conversations. And I think like it was fun in the beginning when she goes over and you're like, oh, this is cute. His like younger sister's looking out for him. But then the through line, it was just like, just these throwaway scenes of him just having these conversations about nothing that didn't need to be had. I feel like most of our podcast episodes are talking about like the supporting characters because sometimes they outshine, but like I just think they did nothing in this movie. And it
Yeah,
was
I
a
agree.
cheap
A
way.
weak supporting. It's
Weak
not
supporting.
the actors
Yeah.
did great,
It was
just
how it was
poorly
written.
written. Yeah.
And I think another part of this, kind of in the same vein, is like the voiceover. I know you had mentioned you liked it, and I had the same exact feeling. Like as soon as the movie opens and you kind of have this like looming voiceover, it sounds almost like the voice of like relationships or like, you know, how you would read a, you know, magical Disney storybook and like how something is being portrayed, but it's like the opposite. And I like that it was sprinkled in at different points, but one point that I felt like it was so poorly used or just like it drove me nuts was when he first goes to Summer's apartment for the first time. Michelle's cat just ripped out her ears. She didn't Rory did not want us to. Um, but when he goes to Summer's apartment for the first time, and when you walk in, he has that face of like softening and, oh, I'm seeing her paintings and that she has things in boxes, and this is a side I didn't think of her. And like, if you have two eyes and you've seen movies, you know that the purpose of this is to like show that she's like unearthing herself to him. And they just tell us that. And it's a different decision versus being like, and now we're going to tell you a story that's not doesn't actually end. Like it's like narrating how we feel versus like making a decision to set the movie up in a different way. That just really made me angry. But other than that, my really big thing that I just want to point out is I wish that we could have met Rhonda's, or is it Rhoda's cat Pickles
Oh,
in person,
Pickles, yeah.
as well as Summer's dog Bruce. I think that if they're going to make a second movie at any point, I just want a movie about those cats. And also justice for Rhoda because she got in the crossfire of
Yeah,
Tom's
poor
of this
Rhoda.
poor woman. I loved those cat cards. I think they were hilarious, and she was so earnest about what she was trying to communicate. They were the strongest supporting characters, the ladies in the office.
I loved that everyone who worked for the card company was so earnest.
Yes.
I felt like
Even the
I mean,
boss,
maybe not
he
Mackenzie,
was
but the
so
boss.
sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kept waiting for the boss to be a huge jerk, and he never really was. He was just a
No.
little aloof, but
Yeah.
yeah.
People just love greeting cards. And Michelle, I feel like this is a sign. Michelle and I were just talking about how I'm going to go into the greeting card business as my retirement someday. So I think this was a sign.
True. And I didn't think of this. I mean, it's not exactly the same, but most of my early career on my own was invitations and cards.
Yes.
So someone is.
It's
I
true.
mean, I wasn't writing sentiments, but
Well,
I was in the industry.
never too late to cancel this podcast and go back into the card industry.
For the audience, we lost Lisa again, but let's get into favorite scenes and favorite lines.
Yeah.
Can I start? Because this is a little bit of a continuation from
Sure.
what did Lisa hate? I loved the musical scene. Of course I did. The thing that I liked most about it was that when it started and he was having those first few little moments on the street where he saw his reflection and he saw himself as Harrison Ford, and then he starts having all these positive interactions with the people on the streets, I thought, oh, this is great. And paired with this song, that this was great. They could have just stopped there and I would have loved it. But the fact that they committed and said, you know what, let's just make this a full musical number. And I just kept having one surprise after another, leading to everyone doing choreography together and then having the little bluebird show up at the end. I felt like it fit perfectly in with the tone of this movie. It would being like such a weird thing to stick in there.
Yes, I know. Like if you were to show me a clip of the split screen home videos, then this, then the episode, then like them sitting on the train or them sitting in a conference room, it would have felt like 4 different movies. It's like, I feel like this movie has no, right to work, but it just does. Like they're just kind of like, we're just going to try a bunch of shit. And it's all going to tie together. We promise. Just trust us. I definitely asked you this in a previous episode, but have you ever seen a flash mob in person?
Yes. In LA.
Right?
In LA at City Walk.
Wow.
And I thought that at one point that I was going to be asked to be involved in it.
Would you? I think we did talk about this and you said
I think that I would. I think that I secretly wanted them to ask me, but it was clear that there had been rehearsals. It wasn't a spur of the moment thing, even though that's what they want you to.
Yeah.
But also I felt like flash mobs were also just kind of becoming a thing around this time when this movie came out. So
yeah. Lisa, we're discussing our favorite scenes and Michelle is punching back at you because she also loves
for the one that I hated.
Scene.
Oh yeah, that was my favorite scene.
And something is changing in me because I like hate flash mobs so much. I think that they're one of the most uncomfortable things, but like I am all in on this scene. Have you ever seen a flash mob in person, Lisa?
No, besides the one that well, it wasn't a flash mob, but at my wedding, at
Oh,
dance.
yeah.
But I guess that was somewhat of a flash mob to the other people there who were
I think
unprepared
people
for
are more so
this
confused.
choreographed dance.
Yeah.
It was a little confusing, but
Yeah.
actually maybe I have. Possibly in California.
I think you guys
But
were together, and I think Michelle just blocked you out because she was like, I'm the star of this show. This is my flash mob. Michelle, did you have a pairing favorite quote?
In that sequence where they're interviewing everyone and Tom's boss says of his wife that he's been married to for a long time, she's the light that guides me home. And he said, yes, that's from one of our cards, which was as he was saying the line, I'm like, oh, this sounds like it's from a greeting card. And I love that he included that line in it.
Yeah. So my favorite scene, I wouldn't say it's a favorite scene and that I want to go back and watch it, but I think that it was so heartbreaking. And we talk a lot about how music is paired really well. Lisa, at the beginning, I was talking about how much I loved Regina Spektor at this time, and they used not one but two Regina Spektor songs,
Yep.
Us and the scene that I'm was my favorite. They play the song Hero by her, where he kind of thinks that he's back in her graces and they're going to have this beautiful relationship. And he goes to her rooftop party and they decide to do the split screen of expectations versus reality. And like at the time of watching it, I wasn't emotional, but now that I'm thinking about it, I'm getting emotional because again, it just felt very human of like how many times in life, like take relationships out of the picture of like, do you just play these expectations in your head of like, this is how today is going to go, and this is how I'm going to feel, and this is how someone's going to react to this? And like, you create this fantasy in your brain. And I think it like really connects back when you think about relationships and how we grew up and like how we saw it portrayed on TV or portrayed in movies to like play out both of those scenarios and show them side by side. And I just thought it was so beautifully done to have the song Hero play in the background, because if you look up the meaning of that song, it's like the meaning is about imagining an idolized life only to face the reality that life doesn't follow a perfect reality. It was just perfect. And then to like end it on this very dramatic note of she's showing her ring to someone. And it's like the worst possible scenario that could have happened. Not only the scenario that he didn't imagine, but to have her just completely shatter him and like completely show him the type of person that she is, that like, yes, she's not a monster for falling in love with another man, but she's a monster for, at least in his mind, leading him on and thinking that, you know, at least they're friends or they're in each other's good graces, and having this somewhat romantic reconnection at the wedding only to be invited to basically an engagement party.
So beautiful. That's
Yeah.
a
Well
great pick.
Yeah. And then I think my two favorite lines, it's just more so I think are very, you think of romantic comedies or romantic dramas, you know, there's always those cliche lines, but I think these two lines are actually very original and kind of like encapsulate who the characters are really well. So I think the way that they have like closure on their relationship of like, you know, ending with the bench. And I think it worked really well because that's how they start the movie and making us think that maybe these people end up together and there's this love story. Like, I'm trying to remember seeing this for the first time and wondering if I was like shocked that that ending bench scene is actually not what we think. But I love the line that Tom says of, you never wanted to be anyone's girlfriend and now you're someone's wife. And then she also says, in response to him finally asking her, like, well, why did you marry him? And she says, everything I was unsure of with you. And it's just like this very heartbreaking conversation. And like you have this animosity towards this woman for making these decisions, but like that's who she is. And that she's being very like honest, whether or not it's, you know, in good taste or good character. But I thought that both of those lines were very memorable and really like have stuck with me, even though I haven't seen the movie in a while. Like I always remember that scene very well.
I mean, I love the line, but really, I mean, of all the things she said, when she said that, I was like, that's just an awful, awful thing to say to
I
somebody.
know. But I think it's awful, but I think it's also, again, very, that is a real thing that happens, of like someone being with someone and then like meeting someone else and being like, oh, this is why.
Yeah, but I feel like that's a line that she says to her husband because
Yeah.
that's going to make him feel really good and really special.
Yeah.
I mean, to say that to Tom is
Yeah.
only hurtful, and it's also, I mean, just making her look like a jerk.
I almost think it was like necessary for him to hear that, because now he's free, because like if he only has these like he does go back and they rewind and they have these like, they're not really bad memories, they're more so realizations that like she's falling out of love with him, and like to now have that as the last memory of when they potentially like seen each other and had this conversation, at least he can be like, oh, all right, she's not the woman that I'm supposed to be with if that's how she would treat me or speak to me.
I do think that for the simplicity of it, to me, my favorite scene was when they were in the elevator together and like she heard him listening to the Smiths and said right away, like, I love that song. And just like the reaction on his face was just so like indicative of the time. And like, I don't know, for me, it was just like, oh, like we love the same music or whatever. It was just like so simple, but also I feel like she was showing off in a way. Like she was so casual about it because she knew that it was going to be a big deal to him. But I also like, we always have to do like a nod to New Girl. There were so many elevator scenes in New Girl where like she was in the elevator with like Jake, and you know, I just felt like I see that and I'm like, oh my God, some of my favorite New Girl scenes are like in the elevator. So there's just like that like weird connection where I'm like, you know, something good's gonna happen in the elevator.
I felt like there were a few scenes that I felt like were the same New Girl sets, like the bar where the jerk guy was.
Could
I
have
was like
been.
waiting for Nick to pour them a drink. And I felt like there was another setting that felt like it came off the New Girl set. But anyway,
And
I feel like this
Oh.
was laying the track for that show.
I did have another scene. I'm sorry that I forgot about.
No, it's all right.
My favorite scene that can be second was when that day that they were going around the city and they were sitting in the park bench together and he drew on her arm, because it was like, so he was just showing her like he's an architect and like this is his passion, and it was like a really sweet thing, and he just was like, oh well, I don't have paper, so give me your arm. And
Yeah.
I think that's like a very like young love type of gesture, and it was like really sweet, and she was like sweet about it.
I feel like you could look at it deeper as like he's kind of like leaving a mark on her, you know, of like, you know, whether or not she wants to believe it or not, like he did have this impact on her. Before we move into food sightings, I do love that very short scene where he's very nervous because he wants to basically like ask her what we are, what our label is, and there's this really beautiful song playing in the background that's like by this, I think, French Italian artist, and I actually think that's probably a scene that I would tell someone to watch if they haven't seen this movie. You know, in a way you kind of believe what she says in that moment where she says like, I don't know what we are, but like I'm really happy, aren't you? Like it doesn't really matter, why do we need to kind of like get so serious with a label and like define and then kind of fall into these like traps of needing to act a certain way. And I just think it's kind of this sweet scene, and they're like going to the movies, and it's just, so it's a good little moment where we see them in a car together.
Cosign.
food sightings. This isn't a great food movie. We see a lot of like diner or dinner moments, which it feels very like out of place for LA. So again, feels like more of a budget decision. But I think my big one is definitely diner pancakes. Some good martinis, drinks with coworkers, having a good cheap beer. The one like food moment that I always think of when I think of this movie is him when he's kind of like in the worst down of the dumps he ever can be. And he goes to the bodega in his robe and he throws a bunch of Twinkies at the cash register and he gets a bottle of Jack Daniels or whiskey and then like cheap orange juice. And I'm like, those are all of the worst things that you ever could have picked. But I feel like it's a perfect representation of how he feels in the movie. I wanted to ask the both of you, if you were going through a really bad breakup, what would be your snack or drink of choice? And listeners, this is another film to table question for you that you can answer and interact with us on social or ask at your next dinner table interaction with family and friends.
I want to say popcorn would be a good choice because you can like really grit your teeth and you can keep going. Like it takes a lot to get through a whole bowl. I think the popcorn would be a really good choice. I don't have experience with, not that I don't have experience with heartbreak, but I feel like I more associate heartbreak with not having an appetite. But if I wanted to like get anger out, something crunchy feels like a good choice.
My first thought was also popcorn in my head, but we're like the popcorn lovers, so naturally that's the first one. I feel like I would probably go for like the most indulgent foods for sure. Like because you just don't care at all about calories. So I probably would have went towards maybe like a Ghirardelli brownie of some sort. Probably either those the brownies with the chocolate chips in them, or like just a pint of Van Leeuwen. Like maybe in 2009 it would have been a pint of Ben and Jerry's, but like now it's like the sophisticated heartbreak, so I would do the more expensive pint. And that would be a custard pint of Van Leeuwen. Maybe like with some like salted caramel sauce or something on it. Yeah.
Laura, how about you?
My immediate thought was like a pint of ice cream, which I haven't done in like so long. And agree with Lisa, in 2009, it definitely would have been a Ben and Jerry's Cherry Garcia. It's definitely a go-to for me. Or Chunky Monkey. But yeah, just to like sit on a couch in a blanket with a pint of ice cream and like watch a sad movie. Maybe watch this movie. Done. Any other food sightings for you guys or things you wanted to eat or drink?
First off, not champagne theory. For the new listeners, champagne theory is our theory that there's champagne that appears in almost every film that's been made. And I loved that in this movie when they're at Millie's engagement party in the office that they say something like, "This isn't real champagne, is it?" We'll count that. And then other food sightings that you didn't mention, Laura, that's very significant for our family. In one of the little, I don't know if we call them flashbacks, but where they're kind of introducing Summer's character and they show her working at an ice cream shop.
Yes.
Our mom and dad met working at an ice cream shop. So I thought that was very cute. And then my last item was when they were at the movies and she's drinking Pepsi and has a popcorn, which is one of our favorite combos. But I just wanted to comment on the state of straws in 2026 when we're recording this. We've been through a journey, we've had environmental issues, but it just made me think that it's been a really long time since I've seen the type of straw that she's using in this movie, not just because it's plastic, but because it's the bendy straw. Does the bendy straw, and I'm not like a huge bendy straw fan, but when I saw that, I thought, does the bendy straw still exist?
I don't know, but I've always felt like the bendy straw is too thin for
Yeah.
for a soda, especially at the movies. Like I think this one that's straight up is always a little bit more durable because it would like start to fall apart if you bit it once by accident or something. I gotta go with the OG, just like has no designs on it, just a clear
Laura's like,
plastic.
Coke and a regular straw, please.
I mean, listeners know very well how strongly I feel about my going to the movies setting. So
Yes, your menu.
tomorrow, when I go to the movies, this is a travesty. I've not talked about this on the podcast yet. They are not a Coca-Cola theater, they're a Pepsi theater. And let me tell you, I tried. It's not sitting well with me. It's something about the fountain soda of a Pepsi. It needs to be in a can. So I have two options. I can either start buying my own Coke cans, getting some straws, and smuggling them into the theater, or I can switch over and become a Dr. Pepper girl in the movie theater, which I have tried.
Team Dr. Pepper.
Pretty
That's
decent
my go-to.
combination. I want to support the arts and give them my money instead of bringing my own Coke, but I don't know though. There's something about having a Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola, if you're listening to this, Michelle and I don't beg for sponsors, but I truly am a fan. So.
Lisa, any other food items that come to mind or things that this movie makes you want to eat?
Besides the diner with the pancakes, didn't they sit in at another diner though? Or like another restaurant?
So
that
he
looked almost like a...
Yeah. Well, he goes on a date with Allison, that woman Allison.
Yes, that's
and
right.
I always think that they're like, it looks more like they're at a Chinese food, or could be Chinese food. I get so upset because I got upset in the moment because they didn't actually show what they ate. And I wanted to know, were they at a diner? Were they out for like some late night Chinese food?
Not a big food budget, I think, was the issue with this movie. Or maybe I think they blew it all on the pancakes.
I was freaked out by the pancakes. I feel like the pancakes and the sausage, it was just like, I remember just like looking at that plate and I'm like, oh man, these are sad. Like even for the diner, like they're supposed to look a little better than this. Well, it was very sad.
But I still wanted them.
I think it's the gray theme.
Yeah, they were gray pancakes.
They were gray pancakes.
Lisa, by the way, the next time we meet up for breakfast, we're going to the diner because not only Michelle knows I've been doing my morning pages since the beginning of this year, and I keep writing about craving diner potatoes and craving pancakes. So
and now you're in the Garden State, so you better not waste it because the diners
get to a diner.
State Line Diner, here we come. Speaking of dates or parties or gatherings, great transition into our dinner party segment. I am going to take the liberty of deciding the setting because this is the only kind of other memorable part of the movie that we haven't really discussed. I think that this should take place at Millie's wedding. Maybe alternate, like because it's like maybe a smaller wedding. Everyone really gets to decide either what they're bringing or what they're ordering. Like sky's the limit. Millie wants everyone to eat their favorite foods.
It's a very bespoke wedding.
We'll each give each other someone and we have to decide what they would ask for. Maybe it's their comfort breakup food, but they just happen to be
at this wedding post-breakup.
They're all crying. They're so emotional. They're seeing their beautiful friend get married, but they're like, Millie, we need our comfort food because this is a lot for us to handle.
This is perfect.
So Michelle, I will give you someone. You give Lisa someone, and Lisa will give me someone.
Okay.
So Michelle, I'm going to give you Rhoda's pet cat, Pickles.
Okay, Pickles. Okay, Lisa, I'm going to give you Allison, very nice girl that he goes on a date with, but does not connect with.
Okay.
And also a shout out because our fourth sister who's not here is Allison. So we'll represent her.
Yeah.
Laura, I'm gonna give you Mackenzie, his
Okay.
friend, one of his roommates, the one who was like at the table at the
Yes.
bar when he was asking to find out if she was single or not.
Should I go first?
Yeah.
Pickles the cat.
Pickles the cat.
Okay, so post heartbreak, Pickles the cat. How about a plate of sardines? And his one request is that someone kind of do the work for him so that he doesn't have to, debone them. That they already come mushed up.
Yeah.
And then on the side, he'll have how about a fountain? They have like those fountains at weddings, like with chocolate. He requests a flowing fountain of full fat cream.
Nice.
Laura hates alternative.
Yes, I hate alternative milks.
Yeah,
We are
so-
a full fat milk family on this
Okay,
podcast.
so so cream for pickles.
Okay, Allison to me seems like a store-bought girl. Like honestly, Allison, I didn't hate as a character. I was like, listen, she like put up with going on this date with him, and she was a great sport about it. And I was like, I kind of like this girl. So if she was a store-bought girl, I think she would buy like a hors d'oeuvre sampler, like a frozen hors d'oeuvre sampler, a little mini hot dogs. You got some puff pastry in there,
Mhm.
some surprise something in there. There's usually like 5 to 7 varieties of foods in there. She would just pop one of those in the oven. It's nice and quick. Oh, and then for a drink, like, I don't know, definitely something stiff. I feel like she would also buy like a pre-mixed drink, like some kind of pre-mixed cocktail. Just make it easy. Nobody has time for this. She's got to get to watching her movie. So she's got something in the oven. She's got her pre-mixed drink and she's got her fuzzy socks and she's just ready to wallow in the pain.
This is a decision for Millie's wedding. I actually love this about her because she's so put together at the date, but like she shows up in her comfy outfit. She's like, she's like, Millie will understand. I'm gonna just lean into this is me. This is me at my point in my life. This is great.
Good.
Mackenzie, I see him as someone who definitely like fights pain with humor. So he's going to be like very ironic with whatever he eats. He's going to be like, well, back when I was young, my mom used to make me my favorite, big ziti. So he's like, if I can order whatever I want because I just got my heart ripped out, the chef at this wedding needs to go and talk to my mom and find out what her baked ziti recipe is because that's what I demand to eat. And then I think he's going to get like absolutely blackout drunk. I think probably we'll have some drugs involved. He's going to be like the friend who brings Molly to the wedding and like there's a run in the bathroom and he's just trying to outwardly numb his pain at this wedding. And poor Millie and Rhoda, they're in the backlash of all these toxic men and going through their breakup. So, I mean, I don't know. I think that Mackenzie might be putting some Molly in the milk, in the cream,
Oh, poor Pickles.
in the cream fountain.
Maybe he'll like it. So
Yeah,
I
I think
know.
that everyone's going to be having a good time. And then that's when Allison's platter is going to come into play and save the day. Everyone's going to be high on Molly and they're going to be eating mini hot dogs and drinking milk. This is a
Good.
party. This sounds
is
like
a
the
party.
worst table ever at the wedding, but I
Oh
think
my
Millie
gosh.
seems like an understanding person and she's gonna be like mama bear to these three and make sure that they get through these breakups okay.
Can I also ask a continuity question? So, Lisa, before he hops on, Laura had the theory that Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character in 10 Things I Hate About You grew into this person who is Tom. And I'm wondering, because Millie is a little bit of an older lady, or at least not a typical age for a bride, is it possible with the time we're working with that she becomes Millie, who makes Millie's brownies, that maybe she moves to the East Coast and becomes part of the Family Stone world?
I think so. I think that there's a crossover here. There's only so many Millies in movies, and
It must be the same person.
again, she's like, I know what solves heartbreak. It's drugs, and she makes those pop brownies for everyone.
She does seem like someone who would have a famous brownie recipe.
God, I wish I knew a Millie. What a great name. You cannot be a bad person and have the name Millie. I mean, there's
It's
just
true.
no possible way. Okay. Successful wedding, breakup,
Yes.
Valentine's Day party, anti-Valentine's Day party. All right, let's get into our final segment, this or that. Lisa, since you're our guest of the evening, you're going to be in the hot seat. Michelle and I are going to ask you some pretty rapid fire questions. They might be a little bleak, so get ready. Okay, I'll start off.
I was made for this.
Yes. Okay. Pick a date. Going to see The Graduate at the movies, followed by pancakes at the diner, or shopping at IKEA, followed by beers at the bar.
IKEA, followed by beers at the bar.
Wow.
That sounds great.
Pick a career. Greeting card writer or an architect.
I think architect. I think architect, because I just feel like you meet with different people. You might not be in the office all the time. Sounds a little more dynamic.
Okay. Pick a party. Rooftop engagement party at Summers or Millie's coastal wedding.
I mean, I would go with the rooftop, even though it was a shitty occasion. I would still go there because it was nice views, and I don't know. It was a beautiful view from up there.
By the way, that was the other set that made me think of New Girl. Like that looked like their same rooftop on their apartment.
Okay. Would you rather get broken up with via email? There were some emails here and there. Or would you rather get broken up with after spending like a romantic weekend away together?
Definitely email. I would take the impersonal to not have an awkward moment in person, and I hate talking to people on the phone, so obviously email.
Okay. Pick a karaoke song, Born to Run or God Bless the USA.
Born to Run. I feel like you have to be so drunk out of your mind to sing God Bless the USA.
Yeah, agree.
Because you know it's gonna be butchered, so you just lean into it.
Okay, Michelle, you're
all
up.
right. Okay, we actually don't have very much crossover. First one. First kiss locale. Would you rather it be at the copy machine or in the elevator?
I feel like I would probably say the copy room. Even though people can show up, it's still like a good story.
Mm-hmm.
The elevator, like, yeah, it's cool, but like it's in movies, and I also feel like it might have to be quicker because you're in an elevator, or the doors are closing, or whatever is going to happen. But the copy room could be like 2 kisses. You never know what's going to happen.
Next one. Would you rather someone draw you an architectural tattoo on your arm or sing you a cringy karaoke song?
You know what? I think I'd have to go with the karaoke song, even though like I would hate people singing to me at Chili's. I feel I feel like I had like a legitimate phobia during all those years that the Milky pens came out and people were drawing all over their bodies. I thought, like, probably because of Mom's influence, that the inks were leaching into my body and poisoning me. So if somebody was to take a ballpoint pen to my arm, I probably wouldn't sleep for like weeks. So
Wow,
I would say
you
I would
loved
just
that
take the
scene.
song. I know, it was like a nice gesture. But if I'm thinking about it happening to me, then I would not want that ink in my skin.
Yeah. We've said this in so many episodes, but to the song point, petition to change the birthday song, and you should not
Yes.
be able to
No.
sing to someone unless you are Harry Styles, Bruce
Yes.
Springsteen, or Paul McCartney. Anyone
But
else, you're not welcome.
karaoke is a little more subtle than like a birthday in a restaurant, because karaoke, unless they shout you out and people know who you are, they could just be singing to you and you're just somebody in the bar. So I would definitely take that
I
one.
just don't want to be sung to.
All right. Would you rather go to a wedding and bump into your ex, or attend your ex's party where you find out that they're engaged?
Number one, for sure. And it's happened also in real life. But it's fine because it's just a wedding, and really I feel like there's just this general like feeling that, like, especially if you're there for somebody else, you just hope that people are drunk and that it's not going to be awkward.
Yes.
Wow. You'll have to offline tell me who that was.
Yeah.
All right. Last one. Of Summer's past love, who would you most want to date? Marcus, the very hot rower, Charlie, the girl in the band, or Francisco, aka the Puma?
Marcus, obviously. That's like so my type.
Yeah.
The
So,
rower.
like,
Lisa, thanks so much for coming on. So our next release is going to be Palm Springs, which we're really excited about. A little bit more present day release. So
But
make
still
sure you,
equally
yeah.
as
equally,
a depressing era, maybe
Yes.
even more so.
yeah,
We're going even more a more depressing
yeah.
era, but happier love story.
Yes, a little bit. I wouldn't say that.
Yeah, we'll get into
We'll
it.
get into it. So keep listening to this season. We got more treats coming your way. Make sure you wear a lot of Valentine's Day outfits and celebrate the love with us this season. So see you soon.
All right, see you then. I feel like this is almost my same outfit from School of Rock, but with a different cardigan.
I actually think this is a very Joseph Gordon-Levitt haircut in 3 years, where he lets it grow out.
And let's be honest, I look more like him than Zooey Deschanel, so
I guess you guys could be siblings.
I can see that, yeah.
It's